Okay, good night, everyone. My name is Mauro Eldritch. I'm here to show you my talk, RubyCraft, crafting exploit tools and havoc with Ruby. It's a pleasure to be here today. So I'm going to introduce myself and talk a little bit about this talk. This will be a short talk. So I'm going to show a couple of tools. So I can spend a lot of time showing every single one. So I'm going to discuss them briefly. So in order to introduce myself, I'm Mauro Eldritch. I'm an Argentine hacker. I am the founder of the BCA and the DC 5411 from Uruguay and Argentina. And I spoke at many events, always about security. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. So this talk, it's pretty simple. It aims to share ideas on how to craft security tools in Ruby in a really easy way that it's really affordable for newcomers and experienced Ruby's alike. This talk will have an increasing difficulty and complexity. So you will see that we will start with really basic tools and we will jump to really more complex or more difficult ones. So this talk is divided in three really short chapters: defensive tools, intelligence tools, and offensive tools. And obviously, all the tools that are showcased here are both originally written by me or from members from my DEF CON group. Everything here is open source, so feel free to grab a copy and do whatever you please with it. Please use them right for educational purposes only. And I'm always happy to help in case you get stuck or in case you need any help or in case if you want to show me anything new that you have. So let's start with defensive tools. We'll have leak analyzers and scanners. The first case is leak analyzers. You know, when you have a data breach, a data leak on your company or in the government, it's called Tero. Tero is a national bird here. This will provide a small search engine for compromised user credentials, just to see if one of your users was compromised, because it's easier to check that a user could check if these credentials were leaked instead of having to wait for an admin to search over thousands or even millions of credentials that were leaked. Users can search for the credentials and check if they were pwned. It's like a self-hosted haveibeenpwned.com. It will use really simple gems that are really popular, like Sinatra, ThinkWeb Server, and Logger. And the only thing you need is a CSV database, so comma-separated values, email and password in case you want to analyze the passwords leaked, or only emails and 0. It's less than 100 lines of code, and you can find it on my GitHub here. Don't worry that I will share my GitHub, my entire GitHub later on the talk, so you can find all of these tools. I know I'm going a little bit fast, but I don't want to miss any tool. Sorry for the translation. The translation was done automatically. This is what Tero will look like with less than 100 lines of code. So in case you want to build something similar, in case you want to see that to build something similar for password leaks or for analyzing different data breaches, you can do it using this. As you can see, you can get recommendations if in case you were compromised, and you can analyze the most used passwords and the most affected domains that were present on that case. We used this tool on a real case during the San Pedro government leak here in Argentina. Another simple tool, remember that we will increase in difficulty over time, is called Charmander B, which if you had a web server in the past anytime or any web application exposed to the internet, it won't take more than an hour or two before the bad bots, these are traffic bots, will start scanning and increasingly attacking you. So this really little tool, which is less than 60 lines, I think, will parse all your logs, which are in common log format. So this applies especially for logs supported by Sinatra, which are WebRig and Thin, for example, but also Apache and Nginx. It will parse your log, and start checking for HTTP responses other than 200, things that are not explicitly OK. It will then generate a rules file in order to apply blocking rules for both UFWE, uncomplicated firewall, or IP tables, in case you prefer something more complex. It has no dependencies, and the only thing you need is obviously a log file because you need to parse it. But it comes with a real case example, an extract from one of my log files in which you can find a couple of bad bots here and there. This is pretty simple in case you want to jump into defensive security with Ruby, pretty simple, and it will give you a small taste on how to deal with bad traffic online. Once again, the repository is here below, but I will share them after the talk too. Now we'll jump into intelligence tools. I know the previous section was brief. This one will be too, because I want to show lots of things in a really short span of time. Let's start doing some OSINT, open source intelligence, and threat intelligence. The first one, it's called Ghost, and it's basically a small Destiny ghost. I think everybody here knows the game Destiny, which uses Alien Vault free OTX API to fetch intelligence pulses. This is basically threat intelligence, things that are happening on the bad side of cybersecurity, advanced persistent threats, new malwares, new tactics, new things going here and there. It will parse all these things, all these pulses, as if they were news, as if they were basically a newspaper for malware and bad guys, and will send them to you hourly or daily via Telegram. This ghost can be used as a standalone Telegram bot or API because I didn't propose that the hardware client could be entirely optional. This will use the same basic gems I use for almost everything, Sinatra, Thing Logger, but also OTX Ruby, which is the Alien Vault implementation for Ruby. Optional in case you want a hardware client, a 3D printed case, which I don't own the model, but I can share it, an ESP8266 and mRuby. It's around 130 lines of code, and it's yet not released because I still have some bugs on the client. But once I release, and in case you want to build something like this, you will have a product like this one. You will have a small bot with an SP8266 with a nice blue light, like you can see on the left. And also you will have on your Telegram the channel where you will receive all these intelligent pulses. You can build this with really little knowledge. You won't have to take a lot of effort on this. You won't have to do a lot of things for this. So this is quite simple and straightforward. Now, from now on, it's where the things start scaling a little bit more on difficulty. Binator is another product I was working on the intelligence side in order to shake off shooter trolls before they attack you, before they gang on you. I was trying to do something with the tutor API on Ruby in order to fetch different, let's say stats, different attributes from users and parse them with elastic formulas applied in order to see if I can imply if users are having bot-like or troll-like behaviors on social media. In this case, I have used the same 3 gems that I use always, Sinatra, Thing Logger, but also Tutor API, obviously, MySQL2 for the backend, and Mini Magic gem, which is a really nice gem and a really nice addition in order to process pictures and the like. And obviously, you need the Tutor API key, and it will be around 400 lines of code. I told you that this will go scaling on complexity. And it's not yet released because we are going to release it as a SaaS, probably, free, obviously. As you can see, you can end up with a product, with a really nice product, which is fully supported with Ruby, fully powered by Ruby, which will let you profile trolls, which will let you access different dossiers in order to see the relationships between different profiles and analyze fabricated or fake trends that were established on Twitter. The intelligence tools are not yet released, but they will be soon. We're still working on them, and we still have some bugs here and there, to be honest. And as you can see, you can profile political accounts with a lot of different stats, a lot of different traits, like suspected handlers, outstanding activity, if accounts are recently created, if they are dangerous, if they experience malicious hashtags, and the like. Now I will jump to the longest section, probably one of the most expected on these kinds of talks, the offensive tools. I went a little bit faster on the other sections because I wanted to make an emphasis on this. I know this is sometimes the most expected or the most interesting part. So I will start with two really basic tools and jump then to more complex things. Here is where I will slow down a little bit. Gengar B and Hunter B are really basic in case you want to introduce yourself to offensive security with Ruby. And they are basically brute forces for SSH and FTP. They will attempt to provide, obviously, with a provided user and a provided dictionary of passwords. And obviously, we will use the or native or the most common ways of connecting, which are NetFTP, NetSSH, and NetSCCP, which are, in the case of SSH and SCCP, some nice gems that provide a really transparent way of doing these connections. They are really simple, and yet they are pretty useful in case you want to extend them, because as basic as they are, there's a lot of work and there's a lot of room for improvement. The only thing you need is a password dictionary file, and they are around 70 lines of code, from which 20 or 30 are the banner you will see next. So they are half the complexity you can see here. As you can see, it will do a basic dictionary attack on a fake FTP server raised by Python in this case. And you can do SSH, brute forcing too, which you can see here in the bar log auth log file, where there are many failed attempts to log in with an account. These are pretty easy to extend in case you want to try them. And now it's where we jump drastically to more complex things. So if you've been following up from here and you thought that this will be so basic, this is where we make the jump. So I'll try to go as clear as possible. Another tool, offensive tool that we have built, it's Capybara. Capybara is a C2 server and client. In case that you don't know what a C2 server is, it's a command and control server. It's a server which is tasked with sending and receiving malicious commands from malware. So when a malware compromises a host, it will try to connect to a C2 server to receive the most updated, the latest orders that it has. The point here is that we don't want to build a classic C2 server. So using different applications, some more popular than others, we'll use them as servers. We'll make them malicious. We'll rely our commands on those applications. But since we are not the bad guys, this will only place a ransom node on your desktop and won't encrypt nor steal anything from you. So don't worry about that part. You will need Sinatra, Colorize, and depending on the client you want to build, you will need a different gem. For example, YT for YouTube, Steam Web API for Steam, and so on. Obviously, you will need the software, not you, but the person running the client will need to have the software which you want to abuse. You can use World of Warcraft, Spotify, Steam, YouTube, MediaWiki, and every client is around 70 lines, so it's pretty small after all. We have published all the clients on the repo below. As you can see, you can use Spotify as a C2 server for relying commands. Once you see, it will try to identify a specific playlist, a malicious playlist, and say, okay, what are your commands? Every song represents a command. For example, So Alive represents sequence start. I started something that I couldn't finish means that there are some previous jobs that were interrupted, as you can see here. Fix will try to fix and recover the encryption key, which is distributed among different fields just for the sake of being not detectable. Tang will start the encryption cycle, and adios, which is goodbye in Spanish, will send the sequence end command. We can do the same, or sort of the same, with Wiki or Wikipedia by just editing our profile and having a specific strings. You can map them to specific commands on the client. Now you can even use this on World of Warcraft servers. You can just place a specific character which will talk inside a specific group or in a specific guild. The talking, the chat of this character will be actually commands that will be rendered on the client. As you can see, we are just streaming in a really basic way the chat file, and anybody who can reach this address will have access. Obviously, this anybody is the Capybara client, the Situ client, which will try to have a connection here in order to retrieve its commands. So basically, we have built Situ servers around a lot of tools using purely Ruby. Now it's when things start scaling even more. Here we'll see some exploits. From now on, everything are exploits. So in case you're looking for something more dangerous, this is the place. Kebab, it's an exploit that targets two high severity CVEs for Gluster. Gluster is one of my favorite replication systems. So take the lead here. If you hack a replication system, you will be hacking a lot of other systems by replication. So in this case, we will hack a Gluster FS specific CVEs, two CVEs, in order to place a malicious cron tab entry in the target host. Obviously, once you run this job, this cron job, it will impact different servers. You will need really basic knowledge of things and really basic gems like colorize, netping, and socket. And it's a sort of small exploit on 90 lines of code. In case you want to use a Metasploit module, it is available too. And in case you don't know what Metasploit is, it's an offensive security framework entirely written in Ruby. So it's worth taking a look. In this case, once you run this exploit, it will try to locate a Gluster instance, will attempt to exploit it, will attempt to mount a shared volume from Gluster. This is all done in Ruby, except specific parts which have to be done with system calls, because the time I built this, the Gluster libraries for Ruby were not enough for what I was trying to do, which was highly specific. It will mount these shared volumes and will attempt to mount the cron tab and try to modify it, injecting malicious entry. In this case, user being evil shells, as we can see here below. Obviously, evil shell is not something that exists, so you shouldn't be afraid. The point here is that you are going to introduce a dangerous component inside a replication system. So the point is that you have amplified your damage, amplified your malicious activity by the number of hosts present there that will be affected by the replication. And once you enter the host, you can see that actually the cron tab was executed and was added. Following with different exploits, this exploit target specific containers configurations. These two exploits that I show here attempt to exploit a critical severity CVE, which was the first CVE I have discovered, which has a rating, a severity rating of 9.8 over 10. So it's almost perfect. This exploit is divided into two lesser exploits, Pasusu, which will attempt to infect unauthenticated portainer instances, which are, by the way, worryingly common. And Lempo will attempt to exploit this critical flaw, which will try to steal the LDAP password, the master password. For those who don't know, LDAP works like a directory of credentials of users and their organizations. So by taking control of it, you will basically have access to the entire user's directory, and you can guess the consequences. In a perfect scenario where you hit these two exploits chained, you will create raw images, raw containers, and raw users inside the infrastructure. The idea is to attack Portainer, which is, let's say, engine for administrating Docker containers. It's a pretty nice product, but it has this little flaw that makes this thing possible. You will need now a couple more of gems because this is more complex. You will need socket, timeout, IP-addr, JSON, and net HTTP. Obviously, the victim will need to have Docker and Portainer installed. And here's the main difference. Lempo is quite small with 40 lines of code, and Pazuzu, which already implements the same code base as Lempo, has 200 lines of code. And they are published by separate, but are part of the same talk that I gave about this Docker security thing. I will show you an example because I know this is sort of cryptic to just be talked about. If you can see on the left, we have the shell with the exploit. On the right, you have the consequences on the Docker log, on the Portainer log, sorry. We have injected a user, Captain Howdy. We have managed to steal the LDAP credentials in this case. We have managed to list the containers, inject this malicious user with ID 0, which is the administrator. We have created a malicious imesh for Docker, and we have created a malicious container based on that imesh. And as you can see on the log, all these were executed flawlessly with just seconds with just a difference of seconds and without any warning jumping in. The idea is that you can overtake not only the Docker infrastructure, but everything in case you have access to the LDAP host. In this case, this is just an example. But yeah, basically you can have full access, full control, full takeover. And the last one I'm going to show today, sorry if I went too fast, but I didn't want to miss the chance to show everything. We have Mime, which is a tool which attempts to hack a specific smart digital assistant without saying a word, like a real mime. You know, smart digital assistants like Alexa, Echo Dot, like Google, and so on. Well, Mime in this case exploits Microf Assistant, which is really popular and really good for Linux, but it tries to hack it not by a vulnerability in Microf, but by creating a fake microphone device in a sort of new attack that we call bad mix. But we are not sure if there's more people researching something like this right now. We will generate a fake microphone, which is a software microphone, and software speakers, which are muted. So we will play pre-recorded samples to this fake microphone, sending malicious orders. Think about somebody recording your voice in a pocket recorder and playing it over. Then one of these orders is to install a specific extension. Obviously, Microf will ask for confirmation. We have that confirmation recorded too. So it will install everything regardless. You will need, for this case, Colorize, Docker API, and Streamio FFmpeg. Some versions of mine resorted only of FFmpeg on the system level, doing system calls, because this gem didn't provide everything at first. Obviously, your victim needs to be a Microf digital assistant, and it's less than 100 lines of code. Let me see if we are on time, and I will show you a really small sample. As you can see on the left, you will have all the dependencies needed. It will try to create a raw virtual microphone, will send the word, will send some messages, and will try to listen to it. This video was recorded with bad quality, I know, because I wanted to record it with a cell phone. You will say, what with a cell phone? Because there's no way, I had no way to show that I was actually running everything from outside. that I wasn't cheating, that I wasn't making anything strange with the microphones. So on the left, you will have the Docker logs, and on the right, the exploit, which is creating the fake microphone. Let me show you real quick. So it will start asking, and since I don't have, it will start downloading. As you can see, Microphone is answering, but I'm not talking over it. I'm just sending the commands. In this case, I just commented the part of the fake speakers because I wanted it to show that it was answering. But you can also see this on the logs on the left. Here I'm issuing the command to install the speed test by look-fi-sky, which is the most common. Here it says, shall I install this extension? And I'm going to send a bypass, which is my voice recorder saying, yes, I agree. And then I remove everything before even Microphone starts responding. And as you can see here, skill was loaded successfully. So give me a second. We are back. I know it went a little bit fast, but I didn't want it to take all of your time. My conclusions are pretty simple. Ruby loves security and security loves Ruby. There are lots of really nice projects on Ruby about security, really a lot of them, some smaller, some bigger, but I've seen a lot of things which made me love Ruby at first sight. Anything can be easily built with Ruby, especially in security. Think about offensive, defensive, intelligence, or whatever you like, based on this example I showed here, or based on something that you had a totally different idea. So what I want to see now is, what are you going to build today? I'm Mauro Eldritch. These are my handlers, my social handlers, in case you want to reach me on Twitter or on GitHub. This work is totally published here on my GitHub-RubyCraft. And if you have any question, I'm more than happy to answer them here or via Twitter. Sorry that I went a little bit too fast, but I didn't want to miss anything. So thanks for watching and thanks for attending.